Chapter 12, Working with Labor Unions.
12.1 Unhappy employees could equal unionization. HR manager in 200% company is concerned about low employee morale due to pay and rising health benefits costs, but financial pressures prevent pay rises this year. The marketing department manager reports that employees are considering unionization if they don't receive pay rises, leading to increased employee dissatisfaction and decreased productivity. They have already started the process by contacting the National Labor Relations Board in proving 30% worker interest. The manager is concerned about the potential change in the organization's family atmosphere and financial pressures if employees unionize. 12.2 The nature of unions. A labor union is a group of workers united to achieve common goals like better pay, benefits, or promotion. In the U.S., 11.9% of workers belong to a union, down from 21.1% in 1983. People may feel their economic needs are not being met with their current wages and benefits and believe that a union can help them receive better economic prospects. Fairness in a workplace is another reason why people join unions. They may feel that scheduling, vacation time, transfers, and promotions are not given fairly and feel that union can help eliminate some of the unfairness associated with these processes. 12.2.1 History and Organization of Unions. During the Industrial Revolution, trade unions emerged in Europe due to the low skills levels and employer power. In the United States, unionization increased with railroad construction, low wages, and high risk of injury or death. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and other brotherhoods protected workers' rights. The first local unions in the United States were formed in the 18th century in the form of the National Labor Union, or NLU. The National Labor Union, or NLU, was established in 1866 to lobby for labor reforms, primarily focusing on limiting workdays to 8 hours. It excluded Chinese workers and only defended African American and female workers' rights. The NLU's focus on government reform led to its formation. The Knights of Labor, a fraternal organization, gained popularity after the LNU's dissolution, promoting workers' social and cultural spirit. Initially a coal miner union, they initiated strikes for pay and benefits. However, membership declined due to autocratic structure, lack of organization, poor management, and disagreements among members. The American Federation of Labor, or AFL, was established in 1886 to promote higher wages and job security, resulting in a strong organization. In 1955, the AFL-CIO was formed to address political differences. The AFL-CIO, the largest union federation in the U.S., comprises 56 national and international unions. Its primary focus is supporting local unions, with 2 main national labor unions overseeing industry-specific local unions and numerous independent national and international unions. 1. AFL-CIO. Local unions include Airline Pilots Association, American Federation of Government Employees, Associated Actors of America, and Federation of Professional Athletes. 2. CTW, Change to Win Federation, includes the Teamsters, Service Employees International Union, United Farm Workers of America, and United Food and Commercial Workers. 3. Independent unions, Directors Guild of America, Fraternal Order of Police, Independent Pilots Association, Major League Baseball Players Association. The National Union influences legislative changes, while local unions focus on collective bargaining agreements and local labor concerns, with union stewards representing members' interests. A national union, besides focusing on legislative changes, also does the following. 1. Lobbies in government for worker rights laws. 2. Resolves disputes between unions. 3. Helps organize national protests. 4. Work with allied organizations and sponsors various programs for the support of unions. Chapter 12.2.2 Current Union Challenges. Unionized workers in the United States have seen a steady decline since 1950s, with only over 11% of workers today being unionized, largely due to globalization and employer-focused. Claude Fisher's research suggests that the decline of unions is cultural, driven by American workers' preference for individualism, globalization, management's unwillingness to work with unions, and the decline of unions due to corruption, negative publicity, and hardline tactics. Unions worldwide are declining, but some are still healthy. In 8 European Union member states, over half of the working population is unionized. Unionization rates are 3 times higher in populated countries than the United States. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker proposed limiting states' workers' collective bargaining rights in 2011 to save a budget, causing controversy and legal concerns. Other states are considering similar measures, signaling a shift of union rights. Globalization poses a challenge to labor organizations as more goods and services are produced overseas, affecting union membership and worker culture. Unions demand more governmental control but have been somewhat successful. Free trade agreements like NAFTA make it easier for companies to manufacture goods overseas, leading to unions fighting to keep jobs in the U.S. Companies avoid unions due to increased costs and reduced management control. To maintain a union-free work environment, they offer higher wages and benefits, preventing workers from joining unions. They constantly monitor retention strategies and policies. 12.2.3 Labor Union Laws. The Railway Labor Act, or RLA, of 1926, originally for railroads, was amended in 1936 to cover airlines. It aims to prevent interstate commerce disruptions through alternate dispute resolution, arbitration, and mediation administered by the National Mediation Board. The Norris LaGuardia Act of 1932, an anti-injunction bill, prohibited federal courts from issuing injunctions against non-violent labor disputes and prohibited employers from interfering with workers joining unions, a result of common yellow dog contracts. In 1935, the Wagner Act, or sometimes called the National Labor Relations Act, was passed, changing the way employers can react to several aspects of unions. The Wagner Act had a few main aspects. First, employers must allow freedom of association and organization and cannot interfere with, restrain, or coerce employees who form a union. Second, employers may not discriminate against employees who form or are part of a union, or those who are filed charged. Last is, an employer must bargain collectively with representation of a union. The National Labor Relations Board, or NLRB, handles complaints related to anti-union laws, such as the case of Osborne Hesse Logistic in Tennessee, where employees were fired for forming a union and accused of interrogating them and treating benefits. The Taft-Hartley Act, passed in 1947, amended the Wagner Act to address unfair labor practices by unions. It outlawed wildcat strikes and secondary boycotts, and allowed the federal government to disallow strikes affecting national health or security. President Ronald Reagan famously injunctioned air traffic controllers for violating the law, leading to their discharge. The Landrum-Griffin Act, also known as the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act, was passed in 1959 to regulate unions' internal functioning and combat abuse of members by union leaders, addressing racketeering and corruption charges, and establishing standards for expulsion from unions. 12.2.4 The unionization process. Unionization can begin through contact between unions and employees, or through employee contact. The union assists in gathering signatures, and for an election to occur, over 30% of the organization's employees must support it. The National Labor Relations Board can conduct a secret ballot election or card check method, where union organizers provide authorization cards signed by a simple majority, confirming employees' desire for a union. If a card check method isn't accepted, a secret ballot is used. A petition is filed, with an election is held 2 months later. Employees vote unionization with a simple majority required. The NLRB handles election logistics and counting ballots. The NLRB has limitations on employer actions to prevent unionization. HR and management should be educated on legal and illegal statements and avoid threats or intimidation of employees discussing unionization. Unions aims to have the most members using various tactics during organizing. They may support political candidates, provide training, and encourage union salting. They can also participate in corporate campaigns like the UFCW's Wake Up Walmart campaign, targeting specific companies for their labor practices. 12.2.5 Strategies companies use to avoid unionization. Organizations often find union organization constraints too costly and can lead to management conflict. They prefer safe working conditions, fair pay, and benefits to avoid union formation, with 3 main phases. Phase 1. Your organization is union-free and there is a little no interest with unionizing. Phase 2. You learn that some employees are discussing unionization, or you learn about specific attempts by the union to recruit employees. Phase 3. You have received a petition from the National Labor Relations Board filled by a union requesting a unionization vote. Despite efforts, unionization may occur in your organization. The goal is to prevent the union from gaining support for a National Labor Relations Board election, with HR professionals and managers responding to employee issues and developing strategies. Some of the arguments that might be used include talking with the employee and mentioning the following. 1. Unions' dues are costly. 2. Employees could be forced to go on strike. 3. Employees and management may no longer be able to discuss matters informally and individually. 4. Unionization can create more bureaucracy within the company. 5. Individual issues may not be discussed. 6. Many decisions within a union, such as vacation time, are based on a seniority only. Change to Win. An organization with 4 affiliated unions is aiming to increase union membership in organizations like Teamsters, United Food and Commercial Workers, United Farm Workers, and Service Employees International Union, despite declining unionization.
The impact of unions on organizations. The topic is organizational opposition to unions. Unions workers receive higher wage, negatively impacting the organizations. Second is unionization limit managers' decision-making and freedom in dealing with employees. Third is union contract dictate discipline for late work, limiting management flexibility. And in 2010, the Art Institute of Seattle faculty voted against unionization, focusing on scheduling and office space, not pay and benefits. Union contracts may limit managers' promotions control, stipulating terms like seniority. So means union workers often get higher pay and better benefits, which is good for them but can be costly for the company. So union can restrict how manager deals with employees and issues like discipline and promotion. In 2010 daw, faculty members at the Art Institute of Seattle didn't unionize because they were more concerned about scheduling and office space than pay and benefits. So means unions have both pros and cons for both workers and companies, and it's a balancing act between protecting workers' rights and allowing companies to operate efficiently. The next is the process of collective bargaining. In a bargaining agreement, management rights such as the right to manage and operate the business, hire, promote, and discharge employees are not negotiable. However, the negotiated agreement may outline a process for these processes, and HR professionals must be strategic in the process, tying the strategic plan with the concession the organization is willing to make and the concession the organization will not make. So in a bargaining agreement, management retains fundamental rights like hiring, firing, and managing the business. While these rights are not up for negotiation, the agreement can define the process for exercising them. So, the HR professional must strategically align this process with the company's goals, identifying which concessions are acceptable and which are not. Union security is crucial, and a check-off provision may be negotiated to ensure a steady stream or dues is paid to the union. To recruit new members, the union may require a new union shop, which requires a person to join the union within a certain time period. In right-to-work state, a union shop may be illegal, so agency shops were created to avoid these laws. Closed shops were once used for a steady flow of membership but were made illegal under the Taft-Hartley Act. All 22 right-to-work states have the best workforce, but the average worker in these states makes $5,333 less per year. So this is the collective bargaining process overview. First is both parties are legally bound to bargain in good faith. So first is mandatory. Mandatory topics include wage, healthy and safety, management rights, work conditions, and benefits. Second is permissive topics are not required but can be brought up during the process. Required topics like drug testing or required tools can affect employee morale. Last is illegal topics. Illegal topics are unaddressable and may be discriminatory or illegal outside the agreement. So the collective bargaining process involves 5 main steps. First is preparation, setting timelines, proposing proposals, and reaching an agreement. The first step involves preparing both parties, including those with knowledge of the organization and skills, to negotiate effectively. So the second step involves agreeing on timelines and ground rules for the negotiations. So the third steps involve each party presenting proposals with a let's make this work attitude. Once an agreement is reached, a new contract is written and the union members vote on acceptance. If not, the process begins again. Next is ramifications of bargaining impasse. A bargaining impasse occurs when parties cannot reach a consensus on a collective bargaining agreement. Strikes are used to impress workers' dissatisfaction with the agreement. An economic strike is triggered by unhappiness with economic conditions during contract negotiations. So, understanding the collective bargaining agreement or CBA is crucial for HR professionals and managers working with labor unions. The agreement outlines requirements for managers and outlines discipline, promotion, and transfer. A positive relationship with union member is essential for efficient operations and a smoother bargaining process. Soliciting input and maintaining transparent communication can help achieve this goal. Unfair labor practices strike aim to force the organization to cease committing unfair labor practices. A bargaining impasse can lead to strike or lockouts, which can be legally conducted when the existing collective bargaining agreement has expired. Strike aims to pressure the organization to accept the purpose contract. Next is administration of the collective bargaining agreement. A grievance procedure or process is normally created within the collective bargaining agreement. The grievance procedure outlines the process by the grievances over contract violation will be handled. Procedure for grievances. A grievance is a legal dispute arising from a breach of contract's terms of perception or such a violation. It is typically initiated by an employee and handled by union representatives. The HR department typically plays a crucial role in this process, often starting with an informal conversation with the manager, employee, and union representative. A grievance process involves formally expressing a complaint to the union, which is discussed with HR and management. If unsatisfactory, the complaint may be brought to the company's union grievance committee. Management then submits a formalized response, either resolving the issues or highlighting why the complaint doesn't violate the contract. If no agreement, the dispute is escalated to the national union officer or a mediator. In Washington state, the Public Employment Relations Commission or PERC assists in mediation and arbitration to avoid disruption to public services. If no resolution is reached, an arbitrator may be appointed to review the evidence and make a binding decision. Some example of grievance might include the following. First is one employment was promoted over another even though he had seniority. Second is an employee does not have the tools needed to perform his or her job as outlined in the contract. Third is an employee was terminated although the termination violated the rules of the contract. And last is an employee was improperly trained on chemical handling in a department. So grievances can be categorized into individual, group, and acute grievances. Individual grievances involve one union member feeling mistreated, while group grievances involve multiple members experiencing mistreatment. If an individual or group refuses to file a grievance, the union can file a policy grievance on their behalf.